Greetings, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, members of the City Council, members of the public. This is Brenda Lopez, Interim Housing Director for the Oxnard Housing Authority. And this item is regarding the 5-year Public Housing Agency PHA Plan, Annual PHA Plan, Capital Fund Program, 5-year Action Plan, and the Annual Capital Fund Budget. I will first start with a brief overview. The 5-year PHA Plan and the Annual Agency Plan provide a description of the Housing Authority's basic regulations, requirements, and operational program policies. The Annual PHA Plan outlines any revisions, any new activities, and progress towards the PHA's goals and objectives as outlined in the 5-year plan. The proposed 5-year PHA Plan covers from fiscal years 2025 through 2029. For the Oxnard Housing Authority, fiscal year begins from July 1st of 2025, and in this case will end in June 30th of 2030. The proposed plans are required by the Department of Housing and Urban Development, hereinafter referred to as HUD, under Code of Federal Regulations 24 CFR Part 903. The plans also serve as an application for capital fund grants, which provide the funding that is necessary for capital improvements for the public housing units that are owned by the Housing Authority. These plans must be submitted to HUD at least 75 days prior to the start of the agency fiscal year, which, as mentioned earlier, for the Housing Authority will be July 1st. The Housing Choice Voucher Administrative Plan, also known as Section 8, and the Admissions and Continued Occupancy Plan, which governs the public housing program, have been updated to ensure they comply with the Housing Opportunity Through Modernization Act, hereinafter referred to as HOTMA. This act was passed into law back on July 29th of 2016. However, the Department of Housing and Urban Development has been publishing guidance on how to implement certain sections throughout the years. HOTMA required some of the changes to be implemented immediately, while others require further action from the Department of Housing and Urban Development. Therefore, the Oxnard Housing Authority has adapted its policy plans to ensure they meet the regulations that were to be implemented immediately, while also assisting the staff to navigate through those policy changes that are not going to be effective until we receive further guidance from the Department of Housing and Urban Development. Therefore, we're in a transition period. The Department of Housing and Urban Development will also be transitioning its inspections for the Section 8 program and public housing program from the standard housing quality standards to what is known as the National Standards for Physical Inspection of Real Estate Inspections, or INSPIRE. All housing authorities must be in compliance by October 1st of 2025. The Oxnard Housing Authority has implemented the necessary policies and will be in compliance by October 1st, 2025 with its inspections. Besides the significant changes to any policies, the Housing Authority is also proposing to continue or to undertake the following activities in this coming fiscal year. Choice Neighborhood Grant Program. The Choice Neighborhood Grant Program, it refers to a grant that was received by the Oxnard Housing Authority in 2024 in an amount of $500,000. The purpose of the grant is to support the development of a comprehensive neighborhood transformation plan for the Colonia and Central Oxnard neighborhoods. In addition, the Colonia neighborhood includes Oxnard Housing Authority-owned apartment units, known as the Colonia and Felicia Court. The Oxnard Housing Authority also intends to search for funding opportunities for project-based vouchers. The Department of Housing and Urban Development has a maximum cap of 20% for housing authorities to offer project-based vouchers. The Oxnard Housing Authority has not reached its program gap. Therefore, staff intends to continue pursuing opportunities for these vouchers. Project-based vouchers are tied to a unit versus a tenant. And lastly, conversion and repositioning of public housing to Rental Assistance Demonstration Program, also referred to as RAD. The RAD program combines public housing operating and capital subsidy into payments under the RAD Section 8 Project-Based Voucher Housing Assistance Contract. This program will allow the Housing Authority to leverage public and private debt and equity in order to be able to reinvest it back into its public housing stock. The Board of Commissioners approved staff to submit an application to the Department of Housing and Urban Development for the RAD program on December 17th of 2024. If the application is approved, the Oxnard Housing Authority will proceed with the next appropriate steps. As mentioned earlier, the PHA annual plan also serves as an application for capital funds. The purpose of the capital fund program is to maintain and preserve the integrity of the Oxnard Housing Authority's public housing units and to fund any necessary improvements. For the fiscal year 2025, the requested capital fund budget is $1,057,000, and approximately $800,000 of this amount will be used for capital improvements, specifically the completion of the 504 conversion project, which refers to a multi-phase project through which 18 existing units are being converted to ensure they're accessible to individuals with disabilities. The funding will also assist with alley repairs needed at the Colonia Village project. And lastly, any remaining funds will be used to start working towards the Althea Court project site. And the intention here is to rebuild the project, a total of 8 public housing units, which were previously lost due to a fire. Any remaining funds will be allocated towards administrative expenses. The Department of Housing and Urban Development requires the Housing Authority to publish its proposed changes and updates for a 45-day public comment period. The period commenced on November 28th of 2024. In addition, staff held meetings on November 14, 2024, and on January 30th, 2025. There were no written objections, and there were no written objections in comments. However, 11 verbal comments were received. The comments were received pertaining to various questions that the community had pertaining to the programs. None objected to the proposed actions in this staff report. Therefore, the recommendation is that the Community Services, Public Safety, Housing, and Economic Development Committee recommend that the Board of Commissioners, 1, hold a public hearing to receive comments concerning the 5-year PHA plan, the 2025 annual PHA plan, the Capital Fund 5-year action plan, and the 2025 Capital Fund budget, and 2, adopt a resolution approving the 5-year PHA plan and the 2025 annual PHA plan for the Housing Authority of the City of Oxnard, authorizing and directing the chairman to execute the Department of Housing and Urban Development Public Housing Agency Certification Compliance Form, certifying that the Housing Authority's compliance with federal policies and procedures, authorizing the Housing Director to execute and submit all reports, documents, and all other certifications that are required to comply with policies and procedures of the Department of Housing and Urban Development regarding the 5-year PHA plan and the 2025 annual PHA plan, approving the Capital Fund 5-year action plan and the 2025 Capital Fund budget, and lastly, authorizing the Housing Director to accept and expend the funds as indicated in the Capital Fund 5-year action plan and the 2025 Capital Fund budget. This concludes my presentation. Thank you for your time.